So we're going to go ahead and get started, and please do keep track of any questions you have and put them into the chat function as we go through, and let us know if you have anything you'd like us to cover more in detail as we go. All right, so to get started, we're going to tell you a little bit about who we are and the Abroad at AU staff to begin.
Hi everyone, I'm Sarah. I'm the Assistant Director in the Abroad at AU program. I handle students who have home institutions in Asia, the Americas, Europe, and Oceania.
Awesome. And hello, I'm Desiree Maruka, and I'm an incoming student advisor for the Abroad at AU program, and I work with students who have home institutions in the United Kingdom, Ireland, Turkey, and the Middle East. The next person in our list is Ethan Merritt. He isn't with us today, but he works in our office and is the incoming student advisor for any students with home institutions in Japan. But Ethan is available in the office, so we just wanted to let you guys see his face. So if there is something that comes up and Sarah or Jacob or myself are not here, Ethan would be available to you in the office and you could pop in and ask him questions. And then lastly, we've got Jacob.
I'm Jacob. I'm the program assistant here at Abroad at AU, so I handle all of the special events that we do, all of the trips and tours and fun things we do off campus, as well as the AU Buddy program. So if you have any questions about that, you will be applying in the next month or two for a buddy, and I will be your point of contact for that. That's also my current profile picture on Facebook, so if you are looking for me, I will help you join groups or anything like that, and we'll talk a little bit more about that at the end of the presentation.
All right, and while we're on this page, we do want to highlight our email, which is right below all of our names here, abroadatau@american.edu. All of you at this point should have received several emails from this account, and the reason why we're highlighting it is just to let you know that that is the general account for our office. So abroadatau@american.edu will be the one-stop shop for any questions or concerns that you may have about your time at American University. Everyone on this screen has access to that email, so you're most likely to get a quick and efficient response if you are emailing us first. So whether you have questions about courses or billing or student housing, it's best to contact our office first, ask us your question, let us give you an answer, or if needed, to go to another department on campus. Oftentimes students have found that when they go and contact an academic unit individually or the housing office directly, they end up getting forwarded back to Abroad at AU, and so we end up answering the question anyway, and you could have saved yourself some time in the back and forth with just contacting us first. So please do keep in mind that all general questions and concerns should be coming to the abroadatau@american.edu email, and we're all checking that to make sure you're getting a quick and helpful response there. All right, so moving forward, our agenda for this afternoon or morning, evening, depending where in the world you are, will be to cover J-1 visas and travel plans, housing, both university managed and off-campus housing, health insurance and immunizations, course registration, your orientation in January, and Abroad at AU events and your program things happening over the semester as a whole. Just a reminder for those of you who may have just logged on, we will be taking questions through the chat function, so if we're going over something on the screen and you have additional questions or you'd like more information, please do enter that into the chat function at that time, and we will try and get those answered as we go through. If you have a question about something that isn't immediately related to what we're reviewing at the time, please hold off. We will have a time at the end to go through any questions that we weren't able to answer as we were going through, or any questions that may have not fit into these topics. So we will have a question and answer time at the end of the presentation as well. And then the final thing I just wanted to let you guys know is that we will be sending out a recording of this presentation. So you don't need to be super concerned or stressed out with writing down every single thing you see on the screen as we're going through each slide. We will be sending a recording of both the slides and our voices. So all of the information that you're hearing today, you'll be able to go back and re-listen to or reread if you have any questions later on. So obviously pay attention and be engaged, but don't be too concerned with making sure you get everything, every date and every deadline exactly written down. We'll make sure that you have them very clearly stated later on when we send out a recording. All right, so we're going to get started, and the first thing we're going to talk about is the J-1 visa and travel.
All right, so I'll take over for this section. So all of you who are not U.S. citizens or permanent residents, which based on this list I think is everyone, will get J1 visas for this study abroad program, exchange program. We will be sending support documents to the international office at the home institution. I think a few of you in this list are working with World Learning. If you're working with World Learning, please disregard this particular slide, but everyone else, please pay attention. So the support documents, again, will be mailed to the international office at your home institutions. We expect to be mailing them within the next 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks at the latest. So you should be getting the items you need to apply for your visa by mid-November. We still encourage you already to start looking at the websites for the U.S. Embassy in the location where you will be applying for your visa, because even if you don't have your acceptance packet, there will probably be additional items that you do need to gather, and it's a good idea to start looking into that now and start gathering now. Once you do get your acceptance packet, you'll notice that there are a lot of different directions in there. Do follow that, but one of the most important things you'll need to do is to pay your SEVIS fee before requesting your visa interview. So just make sure you understand ahead of time how to make that fee payment. The first day that you'll be able to enter the United States on your J1 visa is December 19th. So if you really want to spend some time in the United States beforehand, you absolutely can do so. And we'll be talking about housing and things like that in a little bit, and that will determine when you actually should arrive into the United States. As far as after the end of the semester, you do have 30 days past the end of your immigration documents expiring, and we'll go over that in the travel plans thing up here. So this lovely document right here is similar to what you're going to have. This is called a DS 2019. Every semester we get some student who forgets this document or makes a copy of this document and brings the copy. Please be sure that when you are traveling to the United States that you bring this original DS 2019 along with your passport when you're traveling. You will not be allowed to enter, or you may not be allowed to enter without the original document. So be sure you have that. And finally, for the travel plans, we'll talk about housing in a little bit, but if you plan to live on campus in one of the dorms in the university managed housing, note that the dorms do not open until Sunday, January 8th at 3 p.m. Now, if you were one of those students who wanted to come in and say spend New Year's Eve in New York or visiting family in California, note that you will not be able to get into the dorms before January 8th. So even if you email us and say, but I have nowhere to live, we will give you the names of some hostels. You cannot move in before that date. The rooms won't be ready. In general, we suggest that students arrive on campus between January 9th and 10th if you're staying in the dorms, so that you can get settled before orientation. Mandatory orientation will begin on the 11th, and we'll have some optional activities actually happening on the 10th. So things like shopping trips and dinner meetups will be available for students who do arrive on January 9th or 10th. Now, if you're living off campus, we often suggest students arrive a week or two early before the orientation has started, so that they feel a bit more settled in their dorms. In their new rooms. If you're off campus, there's other things you might have to learn, where the closest grocery store is, or how to get to campus. And that takes a little bit more time to learn, whereas students on campus can sometimes just roll out of bed and go straight to orientation. And I mentioned earlier, the last day of finals is May 9th. If you live in the dorms, you must leave the dorms by May 10th at noon. That is important because you are technically able to stay 30 days after that May 9th date. However, you cannot stay in the dorms if you decide to do that. Additionally, if you decide to stay later during those 30 days, you won't be allowed to travel outside of the country and then come back in on your J visa. So don't book a return ticket from the United States if you plan to, say, go to Canada or Mexico in the middle of those 30 days. The other thing that you should be aware of is if you are planning to live on campus and get a meal plan, the meal plans won't actually begin until the Sunday after move-in for dinner, so January 15th. So you'll need to make sure you're budgeting some money for meals during orientation week. Some places will be open. There won't be a ton of places open on campus, but there will be some options available to you during that week. It just won't be included in your meal plan.
All right, so we don't see any questions for travel plans, so we're going to go ahead and move on to housing. And I will be talking about on-campus or university-managed housing. If you were offered a place on campus and you would like to accept it, please note that you'll need to complete a separate accommodation application. So this application will be emailed to you as soon as we have received it from the Housing and Dining Office. They're currently finalizing some things in their system, but the important thing to note is that you will need to complete a separate application. So your acceptance to AU does not automatically mean that you will be given a place on campus. You do need to submit a separate application that's more metered towards housing. So some of your preferences for living style, living arrangements, things like that. The application does require your MyAU portal login information, so you need to create your online student account first. If you've been following your checklist and checking off all of your materials on your Abroad at AU application, then you should have already done this, but we just want to highlight that it is important you go ahead and create your MyAU portal login. That way when the application becomes available to you, you will be able to go ahead and access it and fill out your information. So we're hoping that that application will be available quite soon, and we'll be sending it out to you all along with the steps and the deadlines and things for completing it. And we hope to, by around the middle, early December, be able to give you your placements for the following semester once we hear back from Housing and Dining about where they've placed you on campus. So one of the things students have told us about filling out their application is that they would like some information about what types of housing are available through university housing. Please note that you can give preferences on your application for which of these 3 styles of room you would like, but that is just a preference, and unfortunately you're not guaranteed access to that. Obviously you'll be on campus, you'll have the things that are available to you that we're going to review on the next page that are some of the benefits and resources for university managed housing, but in terms of what actual location on campus you have, we can't guarantee that at this time. We're halfway through the semester, halfway through the year, so there's just putting you into places that they have as they are available. So up on the top to the left, we have a traditional room. This is the most prominent room on campus, most likely to be available. So traditional rooms are going to be 2 persons to a room. You'll each have your own bed. As you can see here in the picture, you'll have your own desk, your own wardrobe, your own dresser, some of your individual space. And you will be on a hall with other rooms that are exactly like this. So within that hallway, you'll have a community lounge area that offers you a kitchen, a TV, a place to hang out, a study room, things like that. And then you'll also have hall bathroom. So there'll be one bathroom for men and one bathroom for women, and you would share that with everyone on your hallway as well as with your particular roommate. On the right, you'll see what is an example of a suite style housing, and that is basically the same thing. So you'll both you and your roommate will both have one room, one dresser, one desk, etc., etc. But then the difference here is that you'll actually have your own bathroom that you'll only be sharing with about 4 people in your suite. So again, you'll have the lounge and the kitchen community area outside of your room in your hallway, but the bathroom this time is shared just amongst you and your suite mates. And then finally, we have an apartment style option. So this is where it will still be 2 individuals to a room, and this time you'll have your own bathroom just for the 2 of you, as well as a living room and your own kitchen. So obviously the pricing and availability with all of these changes depending on what it is you want and what it is you'll be getting out of your space, but just to sort of give you guys an idea of what the different options are at American University. Through university managed housing, there are no single rooms available, so if this is something that you really need, we would encourage you to look off campus, and Sarah's going to talk about that in a few slides, so just keep that in mind. But so plan on having at minimum at least one other person in your room with you. When you are going through your application, you can go back to the Housing and Dining at American University website, and that will give you a little bit more of a description for what each building has to offer and what kinds of preferences you would want to put in order to be in certain locations on campus. So what is housing like on campus? There's several different things. This is an example of one of our buildings right here on American University's campus. So what is provided, as I mentioned in the previous pictures, you'll have your own bed. You'll get your own desk, your own dresser, your own storage space all within your room, and then you'll obviously have access either right in your room or on the hallway to a bathroom with a shower and sink and everything that you could need, as well as a kitchen and a community lounge area. Specific things like a refrigerator or sheets, pillows, those are some things you're going to need to buy or rent. So you can rent the refrigerator directly through Housing and Dining, and once you're filling out your application and you've been accepted onto campus, you'll be getting more information about how to do that. And then you'll need to be buying things that you want to have in your own room, whatever you would like to have in your residence hall. So we will be during orientation doing shopping trips, so don't be too worried about trying to fit a pillow in your suitcase along with all of your clothes for the semester. You'll have obviously a chance to purchase those things in DC, but do keep in mind as you're budgeting out and you're looking at that first week that you will be needing to buy linens and additional things for your room. So who lives on campus? At American University, most of the students who live on campus are first year and second year students who are under the age of 21. That's not exclusive. We do have some buildings that are upperclassmen, so some people do stay on campus, but for the most part, what our feedback has been from Abroad at AU students is that most of the people around them and most of the people who are living on campus were first years, second years, maybe some third years. One of the reasons why that is because American University is a dry and tobacco smoke-free campus, which means that no one is allowed to have alcohol or smoke anywhere on campus. So obviously as students age out of the 21 age limit, which is a legal age to drink in the United States, they choose not to live on campus and to live in an apartment where they are not restricted to the alcohol and smoke-free policy of American University. So we'll get into that a little bit more when we talk about off-campus housing, but just to give you an idea of who is living on campus. Some of the other resources and benefits to living on campus will be the events and the staffing that's available to you. So every floor on campus, every resident who is living here will have a resident assistant assigned to them. That's an upperclassman student who's responsible for being a resource, for planning events for the floor, for making sure everyone has community and is happy. If you have any issues with your housing, things like that, they're there to provide for you and to answer any questions or be a help to you. So those are some things if you are looking for a little more hands-on engagement with a particular mentor and upperclassman in terms of housing, that would be an advantage to you for living on campus. And then the final note about living on campus that we just want to highlight is that meal plans are required for any students living on campus. So if you plan on living on campus, just note that it will be mandatory that you have a university meal plan. That's a university-wide requirement for housing. It's not something that they just do for Abroad at AU students. It's a requirement for everyone. So when you're looking at the budget of what it would cost to live on campus, do factor in that you also would need to have a meal plan on your student account, as that is a requirement for living on campus. All right, so moving away from campus, Sarah's going to talk with you a little bit about what off-campus housing looks like.
Okay, so off-campus housing is basically anything that is not managed by the university housing and dining office. So that could look like take a lot of forms. It could be an apartment that you get either by yourself or with a roommate. It could mean a homestay. It could mean living in nearby in the Wesley Theological Seminary. Or it could be living with family friends in DC. So that's basically what we're talking about when we mean by off-campus housing. Now, students say, "Why should I live off campus?" And they're obviously most of you are offered on-campus housing, but a lot of students choose not to take it because, as Desiree mentioned, if you're over 21, you may not necessarily feel like you're in your peer group in campus housing. Students might feel younger to you. If you have any desire to have a glass of wine with dinner, you will not be allowed to do that anywhere on campus. I'm well over 21 and still can't have wine on campus. Desiree also mentioned that it's it's a smoke and tobacco free campus, meaning you cannot smoke anywhere on campus. You do have to go off. So if you are a smoker, that might be a deterrent to actually living on campus. The other reason that some students indicate that they wanted to live off campus is that it can be less expensive. It can also be more expensive, but it's definitely possible to make it less expensive because on average our students pay about $900 a month for their rent, which if you average out a lot of the suites and apartments that Desiree talked about in on-campus housing, those are more expensive than that per month. Also, as Desiree mentioned, you can only you have to have a roommate if you live on campus. There's no single options. And in off-campus housing, you could potentially live alone if you were able to find a place. Finally, if you want to cook for yourself, if you've been living alone for a long time and you've been cooking yourself or you don't like the American style meals, that might be another option to move off campus because, again, meal plans are required as a part of the university housing. So the number one resource I want to point you guys to is the off-campus housing required reading on your Abroad at AU application. All of you have now been put into the admitted status on line, so you should be able to access this. There's a lot of information in there. It talks about average costs of student housing. It talks about where you might want to look for student housing. All of that is included. In addition to that, one of the things that I really recommend is to look at that off-campus housing website that is available in that document. Students have also indicated to us that the Facebook groups Housing and Sublet at AU, and AU Housing are all options that have given them provided housing for our students. Jacob's going to talk a little bit about our 1617 Abroad at AU Facebook page, but once he talks about that, that is one place that certainly housing will be posted and has been posted already. And also, if you have talked to anybody who has studied abroad at AU, students have definitely found housing through alumni for the program. In general, there are two big apartments near AU that a lot of students live in. They're not exclusively student housing, but a lot of students do live there. Those are called the Berks. You might hear Berks or read Berks, or the Berkshire and Avalon. Neighborhoods that are around AU include Tenleytown, Glover Park, Cleveland Park, Friendship Heights, and AU Park. All of those are very close by. Again, if you are looking at a place and you're not really sure if it's nearby to campus, if it's in a safe location, feel free to reach out to us at that abroad@au@american.edu email account. We can certainly let you know what we think commute will be like and whether it's safe. And I mentioned this earlier that some students find it easiest to find housing once they are here. So some students choose to come to Washington, D.C., get a hostel for a week or two from the beginning, and then go and see the apartments that are available. I would say about 70% our students find housing before they get here, but not everyone does.
All right, so moving away from housing, the next thing that was on our agenda is health. So we're going to talk about immunizations and then get into health insurance. So first up is talking about your mandatory immunization form.
Okay, and all of this will be under your material listed mandatory immunization form. Clever title, we know. The reason we require this of all students is because it's a District of Columbia requirement, a law that we have to follow. So all AU students, whether they're American or whether they're American citizens or international students, are required to do this. So please be sure to look over this form in details to make sure you're getting the information and or shots that are needed. In the case of health, this is the one specific time where we say don't contact us, but contact the department on campus directly. Desiree and I are not physicians or nurses or anything like it, so we won't be able to help you with the specific questions you might have about whether something, say an immunization counts or anything like that. You will need to contact them directly. If there are a series of shots that you need to have that you haven't had, you need to at least start that before you leave your home country, and then you can get additional shots at the Student Health Center when you arrive in DC. Again, you will need to have that first shot done, and then after that you'll pay out of pocket or with your insurance. Desiree will talk about insurance in a minute, about how much, or we'll pay directly to the Student Health Center for those additional shots. So this form is due to the health center on January 1st. And again, you should send it directly to the Student Health Center. I believe there's actually an email address on the form, not the one that we're looking at, but there is one on the first page of the form. Again, as we mentioned, this is a DC law, which means that they will actually hold back your transcripts or your grades after the semester is done if you have not done this. We've received emails from students saying, why is my transcript not at my university? And we will say, because you didn't do your immunization form. So please, please, please look at this deadline and be sure that you submit the form directly there as soon as possible, but certainly by January 1st.
All right, so the next topic within health that we're going to talk about is the AU health insurance policy and health insurance in the United States in general. So this is going to be a lot of information that I'm giving to you over the next two slides, and we recognize that. It's not meant to be overwhelming or to be sort of frightening. We just want to make sure that you really understand how insurance works in the United States and that it is complicated and it can be very expensive. As you may have heard on the news or read about in your home countries, America is still getting itself together in terms of health insurance, and unfortunately right now we're not operating under a system that is universally helpful to anyone. So the information I'm about to give you is covered in detail through your online application. We've mentioned several times already today that there's more details available to you, so make sure you're really paying attention and going through those required readings and materials that are available to you on your application. The one that will be related to what we're getting ready to talk about is under your learning content, and it's called AU Health Insurance. So make sure, again, that if you have any questions that you're going back and reading through that and then letting us or the Student Health Center know. So the AU Health Insurance policy is automatically added to each student's account, and we highly recommend that this is the insurance policy that you use while you're in the United States. The U.S. healthcare system, as I just mentioned, is extremely expensive. It's also very confusing for U.S. citizens and particularly for international students who are not particularly used to using the U.S. system. Traditionally, we've had students who have waived the AU health insurance in the past. They've thought that their plans that they had individually or that they purchased separately were going to cover them and be enough to help them in any case of emergency, and unfortunately ended up getting sick and ended up in the hospital in the emergency room and were later left with multi-thousand-dollar bills that they were required to pay before leaving the country. So we do really encourage that you use the AU health insurance, not just because it's the one that American University has, but because we know that it will cover you and that it's made to meet all of the requirements we're going to talk about on the next page. In addition to that, we do have experts in the Student Health Center on campus who are familiar with that healthcare policy and who can give you more information and details about that particular policy. So that is a benefit to you because you're able to walk right on campus and see a doctor and have any questions that you have answered. If you have particular questions about what is on the AU health insurance, if your insurance plan that you have individually or as a family or in your home country will cover you while in the United States, we do again request that you send those questions directly to the Student Health Center. So this is the one exception to emailing us first. And as Sarah mentioned, that's just purely because we are not experts in this field and we want you to get the best and most efficient answer. If you are choosing to enroll in the AU health insurance policy, please make sure that you do that by January 19th, 2017. It is good that you do that ahead of time, so follow the instructions that are provided to you in your application in order to complete that enrollment form, and that just allows you to have access to the benefits and to the coverage of the AU health insurance as soon as possible once you're a student and in the United States. If you do not want to use the AU health insurance policy, it is allowed that you waive it as long as you have your own policy plan that meets two different sets of requirements. So as a international student on a J-1 visa, there are requirements for health insurance that are dictated by the U.S. government State Department, which was the issuing department of your immigration documents. So this is required. You are required to have health insurance both by AU and also by the U.S. government, so you can't waive it and get out of it completely. You will need to have a separate policy. The specific requirements that are listed under the U.S. government can be found in your application under the document health insurance, like I've mentioned, and more information can be found on the International Student and Scholars Services website, which you can find just by Googling American University ISSS. The reason why this is located on this website is, again, because it's a requirement for all J-1 student visas, so it is through the U.S. government and not through the AU Student Health Center. The AU insurance covers all of the J-1 visa requirements as well as obviously all the requirements for the university. So that's another reason why we really do highly encourage that you go ahead and use that plan. Specific details about how to waive it according to the U.S. government and for your J-1 visa will be included in your acceptance packet. So please make sure that you're reading through that really carefully and you're looking at that list of things you need to complete in order to have a successful J-1 visa waiver. If you waive the insurance and it is later found that that does not actually meet the J-1 visa requirements, you will be retroactively billed and added to coverage under the AU insurance policy. In the past, we've had students who have waived the insurance, they thought everything was good, and then the U.S. government said that their individual or country plans did not actually cover the requirements, and so they've had that cost of the AU insurance added back to their student account after the fact. When you're looking at your own policy plans and the AU health insurance, you're going to find that insurance in general in the United States is a bit expensive. It's not really affordable. Like you're not going to find a better plan than the AU plan. It is quite expensive for everyone, but based on all of these requirements and all the things you'll need to find as a checklist, it actually is a quite affordable plan if you go ahead and use the AU one. So, and then step 2, after you've made sure that it meets the J1 visa requirements, is to make sure it meets the AU requirements. If you meet the international student requirements, please note that that doesn't automatically mean you also meet the AU student requirements. That's a separate list of things, and they actually do not overlap entirely. So the requirement list for this side is available on the Student Health Center website at american.edu OCL/Health Center. And you can review the regular requirements as well as the additional requirements for international students. If you, after all of these 47 things, have decided you still want to waive the AU health insurance, you're definitely welcome to do that. And beginning in December, you'll have access to the waiver form through your My AU portal. So you would log on there and follow the instructions through there. So if you are a MEPI student and you already have an insurance, part of your MEPI scholarship actually does cover your insurance here at AU. So you just need to enroll in the AU plan, and they know that that will be on your student account, and you don't need to worry about waiving it or using that separate insurance. MEPI is aware of the requirements for not only AU but also for the J1 visa holders, and they want you under the AU plan so that you have access to that while you're in the United States. Good question. All right, so again, I know that was a lot of information. It's a lot of steps. It's a lot of check marks. So make sure you're going back and reading through that health insurance document and letting us or the Student Health Center know if you have any questions about that. And we'll talk about this a little bit more during orientation, and sort of as we're going through, we'll have a little bit of time to make changes and things. As you can see, the waiver is due on January 19th, 2017. So we'll be together for a little bit of time before that's due. All right, so without seeing any questions, we're going to move away from in health and insurance and into courses and registration. All right, so the first thing we're going to talk about is the steps you'll take, sort of that we'll go through in more detail on all of these circles, but kind of just to give you an overview. So the first thing you're going to do is pay your $500 deposit. I believe all of you who are on here have already done that. If you haven't, you need to do that right away, or let us to make sure that that is on your account. Paying the $500 deposit confirms to us that you are planning to be at AU for the next term, and it lets us update the American University system to recognize you as a student. You'll need to obviously be a student in order to be registering for courses, so that's really important that you do that now if you haven't already. Then you'll need to go back and reread the course selection document, which you had on your application to submit your initial choice of classes, and then you'll also be reading the waitlist and the register for courses content in your online application. These are long documents, but they provide a lot of really helpful information in terms of looking at the courses for spring, making sure that you're registering for things that will count and that will be a really great fit for you while at AU. Then you're going to review really closely your course approval. So that was sent to you along with your acceptance email. So go through and really read the notes that were left for you, the instructions that are there, and then any reasoning for the courses, whether you were approved, rejected, or had additional notes sent to you for that. And then finally, of course, the last step will be actually registering. And we're going to be sending you more information out about that later on. But we'll talk about it and kind of just give you a quick overview while we're going through now. All right, so looking at courses and credits for American University. The one, if not most important thing that we're going to tell you is that you must register for 12 credits, even if you do not get into your top class choices. So we're going to talk about what that latter half of the sentence means in a few slides. But basically, if you're on the wait list for a course, which we'll define later, that does not count towards your total of 12 credits. So you will all be here as J1 visa students, as we've said. So that means that first and foremost, you are a student, and your only job and thing you should most be focused on while in the United States is being a student. So you need to be at 12 credits, which is what American University recognizes as a full course load for one semester. When you're looking at courses, you're going to see that they are numbered. So they'll each have a course prefix followed by a number, and that's going to be an indication of what difficulty or level that course is. So 100 to 200 level courses are introductory. That means they're basic foundational classes, so they're most likely not going to have a prerequisite. You don't need to have had courses or exposure to those classes ahead of time. You can just take those if you're interested in learning about a new subject or you're just starting off in something. 300 to 400 level classes are more advanced coursework. So those are going to have prerequisites of those 100, 200 level classes. They're going to be second level classes, so you'll have to have already had a foundation or exposure to a subject, and you'll be taking those most likely in your third and fourth year university studies. And then finally, 500 level courses are taken in your final year, so they're much more advanced. They're sort of the final project, final level of classes that you would be taking, and they may be closed to abroad at AU students. So make sure you're being really careful if you're picking any of those classes and that they're not master's level or restricted courses that you cannot have access to. And again, Sarah and I, as we're going through your approvals, would be letting you know if the 500 level class is not available to you. You cannot register for restricted courses or internships, and we're going to define that on the next page. So course restrictions for abroad at AU students are listed on our website under course restrictions. The School of Communication, School of International Service, and Kogod School of Business are the most prominent in terms of what they restrict for abroad at AU students, specifically the School of Communication. If you are a communications major, we've already been in touch with you about some of the restrictions that you may have in your semester, but please make sure you're paying really close attention when you're choosing your courses and adding them onto your schedule, because there is actually a list of approved courses for abroad at AU students, and you can only be using that list to choose courses. So make sure you're looking at our website and going to course restrictions if you're in one of those three schools and you're planning on taking most of your classes within those categories. There's also program restrictions. So when you're looking at the schedule of classes or a particular course section, you may see a note that says only available to students in the University Honors Program or only available to SPA mentorship students. This is a university-wide restriction, so it's not just for you guys, it's for everyone, and that's because those courses are specifically designed for special programs at AU. And only the students who are in those smaller programs have access to those classes. And then there's also school restrictions. So you may see some of the courses that say only open to students in SIS or only open to students in SOC. And again, those are going to be restricted to students with particular majors at American University. So that's a restriction for all students, including you guys. For abroad at AU students, for international students, there are no online courses. So if you see below a section or a course, the note instruction method online, that means that course is taught online. And you are not approved to take that class because your J1 visa mandates that you must be in 12 credits of in-person classroom instruction. And then if you want to take a credit-bearing internship, you cannot do that. So any classes that you see that are listed for internships in the field, so if it says internship course for economics or internship course for international relations, you cannot take a credit-bearing internship as an international abroad at AU student. And finally, the language placement test. If you want to take any language at AU that is above the very first level, so elementary level 1, is obviously doesn't have a requirement because it means you're at 0 and you're building up. But if you want to take anything higher than that, even if you want to take a class in a language that you've been speaking your whole life, or maybe is your second language or your native language, it doesn't matter. You still need to take a language placement test in order to take any international language here at AU. In order to do that, you'll take the test online, and the link is available to you on your application in the document course selection. So go to your application, click on course selection, and then scroll down to the language placement test, and it'll give you the exact link to complete in order to do that. All right. So now that we've established the restrictions, we're going to just talk a little bit about how you actually find the course schedule and how you can get some information. A lot of you have already done this, obviously, because you needed to submit courses as part of your application, but we just want to review and make sure everyone's looking in the right place. So the first thing you're going to do is just go to the website down here. I always just Google Schedule of Classes American University, never fails me. It's going to bring you up to the University Registrar, where for the very first page on your left, you're going to click Spring 2017, and then you're going to browse your subject. So I suggest just clicking on Browse a Subject and sort of scrolling through and seeing what interests you. So if you want to take marketing, you could do MKTG. If you're interested in international relations, go through SISU. Anthropology would be ANTH. So you're sort of just browsing through, seeing what subject you might be interested in, clicking on them, and then pulling up all the courses that are offered. So once you click Browse Subject, the screen on the right is going to pop up, and it's going to show you all of the classes that are offered within that subject for spring term. Now this page is going to give you a lot of information, so that's why we're going to go through it really quickly, just because as you're planning your schedule out, you want to make sure you're looking at all of these different things. So at the very top, we have SISU 212, China, Japan, and the US. This course has two different sections. So one section, 001, meets on Mondays and Thursdays from 11:45 to 1 p.m. It's worth 3 credits, and it runs the length of the semester. You can also see here that Professor Lee will be teaching that course. Section 2 is exactly the same class, but this one meets on Tuesdays and Fridays from 11:45 to 1 p.m. It's worth 3 credits, and Professor Hang Blackburn is teaching this class. So this page really gives you a lot of information about each course. It tells you what days of the week it's being offered, what times it's going to be offered, who the professor is, how many credits it's worth, and then if you click Description, over here on the other side, that's going to give you just a really basic overview of what the class might be talking about for the semester. One thing to note for American University and the U.S. education system in general is that if a course is offered Tuesday and Friday from 11:45 to 1 p.m., you need to go to class both of those days for the entire time. So you don't get to pick Tuesday or Friday, or just pop in, for an hour if you want to. You need to really make sure that you're attending all of your classes. Two different things will be covered on both Tuesday and Friday, so it's really important that you're going to both of them. So we'll talk about this in a few slides, but as you're putting your schedule together, you just want to make sure that you don't have any overlapping classes or anything that's going to kind of conflict as you're going through. All right. So moving away from course schedule, we're going to talk about your course clearances.
All right, and thank you, Desiree, for doing that huge section right there. And so first we'll talk about this form that you got. Most of you on the list have gotten it. Not everybody has. So if you have not submitted your course selection, please do that as soon as possible. Some of you are coming from different programs and through Kogod, so you may not have done this or gotten this yet. If you do have it, please be sure that you are reviewing it very closely. There is a lot of information on here, and I know your eyes probably immediately went to that lovely chart at the bottom that said exactly about course codes and whether or not you got into or if you were approved for the course. But really read the top part. Note that this is only a clearance report. This does not mean that you are in these classes. It does not mean there is a space for you in these classes. It just means that we believe, based on your experience and your classes and academic record that you have, that you could be successful in the class and that you have the background in order to take them. You will separately need to create your semester schedule and register for the classes. And again, we will be sending out additional information, and I believe Jacob will be talking about that, maybe I will, in a little bit, about how to do that. Again, I'm going to note that it says that you'll need to register for at least 12 credits on this form. So these are really important items to keep in mind. Yes, I think we can go ahead and go on to the next slide. Thank you, Desiree. Some of you, when you were first putting these into the system, didn't necessarily realize exactly what you were entirely doing and how the system works at American University. So it's possible that you got rejected from a lot of the courses. That doesn't mean that there aren't very appropriate courses at American University to you. It just might mean that you need to submit additional course requests. And we are more than happy to entertain more course requests from you. If you have a lot of them that you want to request, feel free to fill out that same course clearance request form again. You will need to put at least 8 choices in if you're doing it that way. But if you just have a few, feel free to email us at abroadetau@american.edu with any of those choices. One thing to note is that if you're currently taking a course you want to use as a prerequisite for another course, if it's not on your transcript already, we don't know that you're actually in the course. And that might have been why you were rejected from a course that you had requested. So we'll need some kind of confirmation that you're actually enrolled in the course for this semester, and it needs to be in English. Also, you'll want to bring that an updated transcript with you when you come in January, because then we will be able to see confirmation that you took that course. If you were rejected for that reason, we probably said something to that effect in that letter that you would have received in your admissions. And let's see, I have a course that I want to take abroad, but I forgot to include it in the course form. What should I do? That's a perfect example of if there's only one course that you have, just email it to abroadetau@american.edu. And specifically be sure to reference your name and your AU ID with that request. If you do that on any email you send to abroad@AU, both your name in English and your ID will be much more likely to find you and know whether or not we can clear you for that course. Okay, so the first step in planning your courses will be to get this email from Abroad@AU. In this case, we have already told you what courses we feel will be you could be successful in and that you have the background to take. But we don't yet have, we haven't cleared you in the system yet. You will get an email that indicates if you have been cleared in the system or when you've been cleared in the system. And at that time, it will specifically say how many credits you can and should register for. No matter what, everybody will be required to take at least the 12 credits. And this will also include additional information like a video for you to review about how to register in the system. When you do your registration in the system, you will do it through your MyAU portal. Again, as Desiree mentioned, there's a lot of things like your housing application and your registration for courses, which you will need to use your MyAU portal for. So as soon as possible, be sure to create this, your portal. A number of students have said that they've had difficulty creating their portal. Our suggestion is first to wait a couple of days after you've submitted your deposit to make sure that it's officially in our system. It does take generally up to 48 hours for it to register properly. If you've waited that long and it's still rejecting your request, when you're putting everything in, be sure to leave out your telephone number. So it gives you the option of either putting in your date of birth or your telephone number. Sometimes if you put both in, it gets confused and the system doesn't always have telephone numbers, so put your date of birth in instead of your telephone number. And then if you have questions after that point, do let us know. We can certainly help try to solve any problem.
All right, so actually registering for your courses, finally. So we're just kind of going to give you a very brief overview of this because you will have a very detailed video to watch which will show you exactly how to do this and what everything means. But if you look to the screen on your left, it says the Eagle Service, which is the service we use to register for courses here. And AU makes it very, very easy for you. So there is a little arrow pointing to a red circle in the top right-hand corner of that screenshot. Can't really see what it says, but it says register now. So once you've selected your courses, and I'll explain to you how to do that in just a second, they will show up on your schedule as yellow, and then on the time of your registration, which you will get around November 14th, you just click the button. So the way you want to pick your classes and plan your semester will be to select your courses by course code. So as Desiree and Sarah have both explained in great detail, you have your course prefix or your departmental prefix, and make sure you are selecting the right one so as to select the correct course at the correct level in the correct department, followed by the number and the section. So once you've selected the course through the course catalog, you can say add to schedule or plan, and it will put it on your schedule in a yellow box that shows you when you are expected to show up for that class. And I believe Desiree explained you do have to go to all of the scheduled classes you are scheduled for. They're not optional, and AU takes that very seriously. Once you've selected your courses, you can do this all ahead of time. They show up on your plan, and on or around November 14th, you will be cleared to register, and you just click that button in the top right-hand corner, and all of those boxes will turn green, as you see on the right, and it will show up as registered as the status. Sometimes a class will fill up ahead of time because you do register on November 14th, which is about on or around November 14th, which is about halfway through the registration cycle. Registration is set up depending on your credits. So since none of you have any AU credits yet, they put you right in the middle of the registration cycle as an advantage for Abrada AU students. So you do get more options for course selection. There will be more availability. As opposed to freshmen who are just starting and don't have any credits on their schedule yet. But you might still run into the waitlist issue. So what that means is when you do click register on your course or on your schedule of courses, one or multiple classes might not turn green, and that's because they've already filled up. As Sarah explained, that does mean that you are not registered for your full 12 credits. So that those yellow classes or those classes that do stay yellow will not be factored into your credit load. So a waitlist, and you will be entered onto the waitlist for that class. So what that means is there's a list of people who want to get into that class, and the only way you have a chance of getting into that class is by registering yourself for the waitlist. So if you are or 5 people registered ahead of you and you want to also join that wait list, 5 people will have to be given a spot before you are offered a slot. So it does seem a little discouraging, but don't worry about it too much because what's great about AU is that there are pretty much only seminar style classes here, which means that you're going to have, maybe 15 to 40 students in a class, so that's not so many seats compared to our student body here, which means that some people might be registering for extra classes, or they're on another wait list and they want to wait for that class, and once they get a spot in another class, they drop the class you're waiting for. So it's kind of as the name suggests, it's a waiting game, but you will have to sign up for another class to fill your credit load. But do keep in mind you're only allowed to be on 3 wait lists at a time, which means that you need to prioritize which classes you want to take. and put yourself on the wait list for those, and you should be a bit strategic about it. Meaning that if there are 5 classes that you want to take and all of them have wait lists, since you're only allowed to be on 3 wait lists at a time, if your favorite one only accepts 25 students and there are 20 people on the wait list, you probably shouldn't join that wait list. When there are other courses you're more likely to get into, for example, one that takes 40 students, and you would be the 3rd person on the wait list. So it might seem obvious to you, but it is, like I said, since it's kind of a shot in the dark depending on if you get off a wait list or not, you want to be smart about the way you play it. If you do end up getting a spot in that class, you are only given 24 hours to register for it. So you will get an email that you have been removed from the wait list and that you will be offered a spot in that class, but you have exactly 24 hours to claim it. So that means you're going to want to be checking your email at least once a day after you've registered for classes and joined the wait list. So as I explained, other students play the waitlist game. They register for certain classes or join certain waitlists as a backup for other classes. So there might be a chance you're getting off a waitlist in 2 weeks after you register for courses because the waitlists start to move for other classes, or it could be a week after classes start, all the way in January. So you always want to make sure that you're checking your email regularly to make sure that you are claiming your spot in that class. You don't want to miss out because you didn't check your email. All right, moving on. You can check your waitlist status regularly as well. You don't just have to wait for an email. And the way you do that is you go through your MyAU portal. Under the academic section, it'll say My Waitlisted Sections. And it'll show you all of the courses you have on your waitlist. So this screenshot will show you Ashley is on a waitlist for an SIS course, the course number all the way on the left, and the name of the course is International Econ. And then all the way over on the right, it says WL position. That stands for waitlist position. She's 5th in line, and waitlist status is active, meaning that that class is still accepting new students if other students drop out. So there's still hope for Ashley to get into that class, even though that's from last year and she is no longer a student here. But fingers crossed for Ashley. Sure. So that's a lot of information. You might not have been able to follow me because you haven't even logged into your MyAU portal yet, so don't worry about it. Like Desiree said, you can listen to this whole presentation again, and you will get a very detailed video about how to do all of this once you're actually able to do it. All right, so don't get too worried about it. Just do take your time looking through the courses and seeing what interests you and making sure you're getting cleared for those. That's your first priority now.
All right, and our last note for course registration, now that we've sort of given you a quick overview and told you about how you're going to choose your classes and what you should put on your schedule, is just to let you know that Sarah and I will be auditing all of your course schedules and making sure that you're following the requirements and the rules that we've laid out for you for course registration. This is not just because we want to be the bad guy and we want to, add you into classes or take you out of classes you're not allowed to take. It's really because we want to make sure that you're in compliance with your student immigration requirements and that you're in classes where you will be successful and where you have the proper prerequisites and things established for you. So as we've mentioned, if you're on the wait list, those credits are not yet registered onto your schedule, so they do not count towards your 12 credits, which means you need to be putting second choice or backup classes onto your schedule to make sure you're hitting those 12 credits. When you sent in your course request, you sent us 8 classes, and that we do that so that you have built-in second choices or other classes that you may want to take. If you're not at the 12 credit mark, when we start checking, we will be adding you into extra classes to make sure you're at that 12 credits, and it will be your responsibility to find other courses if you want to switch the ones we've added to you out. Additionally, we'll be going through and making sure that the courses that you've added onto your schedule are ones that you're approved for and you've been cleared for, and if we have any questions about that, we will be taking you out of those. So make sure you're not doing online courses or internship courses or anything that you haven't been granted approval on your approval spreadsheet or in an email from either Sarah or I regarding class registration. All right, so moving away from this big circle, the next thing we're going to talk about is orientation in the Abroad at AU program, and we're going to let Jacob handle this as well. But just to kind of get started, we're going to look at the orientation you all will be participating in January.
All right. So there is a mandatory orientation, as Sarah did explain to you guys. January 11th and 12th, you are required to come both of those days, not only because you're going to get some very important information that you will need to be successful here at AU, but also because we do a document collection and immigration check-in, which is part of your J visa status. You are required to do the immigration check-in, which you can only do at our orientation. So it's the way for American University to let the government know that you in fact have arrived and you are registered for classes and you are on campus. Until you do this, you are not technically legally here. So that means you definitely need to show up for the 11th and 12th sessions of orientation. But we do also offer some services for you guys those days. So that will include campus tours if you haven't already taken one. It's important to know where you are. We will help you find the AUID office to pick up your student IDs so that you can get in and out of your residence halls if you are living on campus, as well as your meal plan. That's preloaded with your meal plans if you do have one, and your dining dollars, as Desiree explained. And then we have a lot of information about the services available to you on campus as well, which is definitely important for you guys to be there for. There will be several information sessions, including your employment rights while on campus or while in the United States, and as well as the regulations attached to your visa status. And then, as I explained a little bit earlier when talking about wait lists and the courses here at AU, pretty much every class you're going to sign up for is a seminar style class, which means it's going to be a smaller group of students for the professors, for each professor, meaning you might only have 10 to 20 students in your class. So that's very different for a lot of people who are coming from outside of the United States, and it's a bit overwhelming, so we do have some help for you on how to navigate this new type of classroom setting, which you may not be used to. But outside of those two mandatory days, we do have on January 10th some campus tours, some meetups, and some shopping trips available for you guys. So for those of you, whether you're living on or off campus, we will have students here who can take you to the nearest grocery store to campus. We're going to have a trip to Bed Bath & Beyond, which is a store which will have pretty much anything you're going to need for your dorm room or apartment. So if, as Desiree explained, if you're worried about bringing pillows or linens, that's the day that you're going to want to join us, especially because we get you guys a special discount for going to pick up all of that stuff. And then on the last day of orientation week, January 13th, we have a great event for you guys called Snapshot DC, which is a scavenger hunt around the city. You're going to go with groups of other Abroad at AU students as well as AU Abroad student alumni, so AU students who have studied abroad who are going to be helping us out during orientation. They will take you around the city to kind of get you off campus, maybe for the first time, show you a bit of DC, and it's a competition-based fun event. It is, though, an extra fee on your student account, so just keep that in mind. It will be added after orientation has ended, but it is definitely worth it. It does include dinner and a photo expo reveal the evening after, so it's definitely something I highly encourage you guys to participate in. I will also be your point of contact for the AU Buddy program, so that's something that you can apply for through your Abroad at AU application portal. And what it is we will match you up with an AU Abroad alum. So again, that means an AU student who has studied abroad, who goes to American University full-time, to be here as a resource for you, whether to show you around campus, to be someone who can help you out with things off campus, setting up your apartment, whatever it may be. The buddy system is meant for you to have someone here who knows the campus, who is still an active student, and who knows what it's like to study abroad and knows how overwhelming it could be, how much fun you can have. So it's definitely a great program for you guys to participate in, and it's not anything that's highly structured. You're not going to be signing up for mandatory events or anything like that. It's just for you to have a resource here on campus within the student body. So it's definitely something that I would recommend. Again, you can sign up at auabroad.american.edu through your application, which you've already begun. And then throughout the semester, you will be getting tons and tons of emails from me and Facebook posts. A lot of you, if you have already joined our Facebook group, might have seen I posted today to the students about an event we're doing. I spend a great deal of time organizing different events for you throughout the city in all different types of capacities, depending on what you guys want. So there's really no fixed structure to what I do for you. It could be if you guys are all very interested in museums, then we can do a bunch of museum trips. We'll do some volunteering throughout the community. But for example, the students this semester have had a lot of fun touring federal buildings and think it's been a really cool way to learn about DC by going to see some of the buildings throughout the city, which is a unique scenario for Abrada AU. Definitely not something that Desiree or Sarah thought we'd be doing a lot of this semester, but it's what everyone has told me they're really interested in. So if that sounds really boring to you guys, then that's totally cool. We'll do something different. I'm always open to suggestions, but I'm here for you guys to have experiences out in the city that you wouldn't necessarily get on your own. All right, and there's lots of ways for you to stay in touch with us, with me directly, especially about events and things like that. As we've said probably 25 times already, if you have any questions, just in general, email abradaau@american.edu. That give us about 24 to 48 hours to respond to you, but we are all so frequently on that email account that you will probably get a response in just a couple hours. So that's the easiest way to get in touch with us about any kind of question you might have. But we are also on Facebook and Snapchat and Instagram. So definitely a great way to stay in touch with us. If you have not already done so, it did say in your acceptance packet that you should become friends with Sarah on Facebook. It is her work exclusive Facebook, so don't worry, she's not checking it. It's mostly just for her to be able to add you to our Abrada AU 2016-2017 group and make sure that you're being added to the social networks for your cohort of Abrada AU students. So make sure you're looking up Sarah B. Harlow on Facebook. You'll find a picture of her riding a camel, and that's how you know you found the right person to get you hooked up that way. But also join us on Instagram and Snapchat so that you can kind of get an idea of what we've been up to this semester and what it'll be like once you're here. So is there anything that we haven't covered that you would still like to know about? Any questions we might be able to answer for you?
Or if we've covered something but not nearly in the depth that you had hoped we might cover, that would be another option as well.
Wow, we did a great job today.
You do not need to submit your original immunization records to American University as far as the immunization form is concerned. You do need to submit a immunization form that is signed by your doctor, but you do not need to submit the original records. In fact, the form itself can be emailed to the Health Center. All right. Yeah, we did a great job. Go team.
All right, so as I said at the beginning of the presentation, we will be sending a recording of this out, so please be on the lookout for that in your email, and feel free to go back. We'll give you the minute breakdown for each of the topics that were covered, and use this as a resource to you as you're moving forward and you start to look at course registration or fill out your housing application. Go back and review the material that was covered so that you remember everything and have those notes for you. But with that, since we don't see any additional questions, we are done. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We appreciate you giving us the time to talk with you through these things, and we really, really look forward to meeting you all in January and can't wait to have you here with us in Washington, D.C. So have a great rest of your day or a good night, depending on where in the world you are at the moment. See ya.